Good evening. I'm Michael Kirsty. I'm the Executive Director of Friends of Chamber Music. On behalf of Friends of Chamber Music, I'd like to invite you all to tonight's performance in context, conversation with Quatuor Agate. I am joined this evening by members of the quartet, violinist Adrien Jurkovic, violist Raphaël Pagnon, and cellist Simon Lachemet. And Thomas will be joining us soon. Over the past several years, Quatuor Agate has earned international acclaim for their passionate performances and artistic depth. Prize winners at major competitions, including the Banff International String Quartet Competition and the Steeles-Wilson Competition, they reached a major milestone in 2021 as winners of the prestigious Young Classical Artists Trust in London. From there, they were named the European Concert Hall Organization Rising Stars and have performed across Europe's great concert halls from the Philharmonie de Paris to the Concerthaus Dortmund. Quatuor Agate will make their Capital Region debut this Sunday, November 16th at 3 p.m. at the University of Albany Performing Arts Center. Tickets are $35 for adults and may be purchased at the door, online at friendsofchambermusic.org, or by calling us at 518-971-1581. Thanks to the generosity of our seasoned donors, students and children attend free. Preceding this concert, Friends of Chamber Music will host a chamber music masterclass with the quartet on Saturday, November 15th at the SUNY Schenectady School of Music from 2 to 4 p.m., featuring young musicians from the Empire State Youth Orchestra, the University at Albany, and SUNY Schenectady School of Music. This is a fantastic opportunity to watch them and learn directly from the artists and listen to our region's talented young musicians perform. Throughout the conversation tonight, if there is something you would like to hear more about or a question you want to ask to the quartet, please write it in the Q&A or chat box below, and I will try to work it into the conversation. There will also be some designated time at the end to answer audience questions. Thank you, Quatuor Agate, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Hello.
So let's start with your musical journeys. Can you tell us a little bit about your musical upbringing?
Yes, so I'm going to start. So I'm Simon. I'm from the south of France, from Toulouse, to be exact. And I started the cello when I was 6. Actually, my father took me to an orchestra performance, and I said to him, I want to play this big violin. And so he took me to the conservatory, and I started the instrument there. And after Toulouse, obviously, the obvious thing to do when you're in France is trying to go to Paris. And so I studied in Paris for a little while, and then I moved to Berlin, where I finished my studies.
Yes, for me, I'm not from a family of musicians, so I can't remember exactly what made me choose the violin. I used to play the violin at first, before the viola. And it's funny, we kind of followed each other. I'm from Marseille. I started in Marseille. Then I went to Paris as well. And then I went to Berlin, and that's where we created the quartet, all 4 of us.
I'm actually very much from a musical family. It's like a dynasty kind of thing from both sides, my mother and my father. So yeah, I both my parents are violinists, so there was violin at home and there were violins at home that I could play. So it was a very natural thing to do. And so also studied in Marseille, and then went to Paris because in France it's kind of the thing to do. And then I was the first to go to Berlin, and I spent a few years there, and then I met those guys who knew each other better than I knew them. They were already friends because they are very much from the same generation, and we started the quartet. Yeah.
And for Thomas, we can answer that his father is the principal oboe in Bordeaux Orchestra. So he comes from a musical family, and he started the violin when he was 4 or 5. And actually, he grew up with the sound of Marc Danel from the Danel Quartet, who is like pretty much his godfather. And so he always wanted to be in a quartet since he was like really, really young.
Wow, that's amazing. Could you tell us a little bit about your name? What does it refer to, and how did you come up with it?
Yeah, so actually, when you start a band, you gotta figure out what is gonna be the name, right? So it took us a little while. and we were, students in Berlin. The quartet was like really new, so we needed a name, and we started playing Brahms music. And we connected especially with the second sextet that is dedicated to Agathe von Siebold, so his second love. And then there's also the stone. And so we liked the combination of both because obviously the name is smooth and easy to pronounce in every language. It's also like it has like a feminine connotation, which is nice, in a full male band. And yeah, we really, really love the second sextet. And actually, we love Brahms music so much that we dedicated our first album to Brahms music.
It's a wonderful album. If you have not listened to it, everyone tuning in tonight, please, you will not be disappointed.
Thank you.
And how did you form as a quartet? So this happened in Berlin. Could you tell us a little more about kind of how you really came together as an ensemble?
Yes, so we were all studying different things. We were in orchestra academies, so really another field in a way, another way to play music, but we were all in Berlin, so we were friends. There is a small French community in Berlin, so you know everyone very quickly. And so we were very good friends, and we started. Actually, we were supposed to have a quartet concert in Corsica, where I'm from, and so we had a program, we had everything, and we started rehearsing and everything, and the concert got cancelled actually, so it never happened. But the group was formed already, so that was a good excuse to start.
So you were all studying orchestral and symphonic playing. Was playing in a quartet something novel for you? Was it something you weren't sure you were going to do, or once it happened, it was just the rest was history?
I think we all had quartet experience, all different. And I mean, I think as a string player, you start playing quartets when you're about, I don't know, 12 or something. It's something that's usual to do. And that's actually a very important step in the development of a young string player because I mean, orchestra is something a bit different. It's like you learn how to play with others, but with quartet you still have to be in charge of all the musical aspects of it. So it has this soloist component and this group component. So it's like the very first experience where you're really in charge of a group. And so we all had already experiences from quite a long time. And yeah, it's something that I think, all wanted to do. We mentioned Thomas, who had as an ideal the Daniel Quartet. I think we all had this kind of ideal and hopes for a quartet that would have a career. So I think when we started, we already were had the motivation to make it work as a career.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in 2021, you were selected as the new artist in the Young Classical Artists Trust in London, which is a huge honor for European musicians. Could you tell us a little bit about this organization and how it kind of changed your trajectory?
Yeah, so it's a scheme that has been built in the 90s, if I'm correct. And a lot of amazing players like the Belcher Quartet have been, for example, selected. So obviously, when you're like a young ensemble or a young soloist, you're looking at opportunities to perform as much as you can, and for your name to be to put your name on the map, basically. And so that's what competitions are for. And this one has been amazing, especially because once you are part of it's a kind of an agency for young talents, and so you basically work with them for maybe from 3 to 5 years, and they really help us develop our brand and our name, and they have like many series that I'm in contact with. So it was amazing. At first, it started with a lot of tours in the UK, but they really expanded the brand, and we've been playing in Germany, in Switzerland, in the States because of them, obviously. So they are super well connected, but also at the same time, they know how to manage, the expectations from young artists and how to make sure that the career makes sense. And now they're doing really a fantastic job. Also, besides the concert aspect, they're really here to help you develop every other component, in your career. So, such as like finding an agent, how do you develop your website? How do you brand yourself on social media? They're doing all kind of stuff, and they're really, really amazing, really.
Amazing. So, uh, communication in chamber music, it is such a big deal and something that we all think about, and it's both musical and non-musical. How do you all stay connected during a performance? Is this something you practice? Is this something you're thinking about?
Mm. Yes, I think the most natural way to connect is through listening for us, obviously, and rehearsing is also good to know what to listen to, what to look for, like the balance, the intonation. There are like many things that are challenges for a quartet, but it's also ways to connect. And then, for instance, I know that we noticed that the audience really likes when we look at each other and we look like we are friends and everything, which is very, very easy when it's the very beginning of the group. And we were still very good friends, but I think it transforms in a way of feeling each other, even physically, like knowing where someone is playing on the bow and like things very concrete. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And in string quartet playing, there's often an exchange or transfer from maybe more exposed or soloistic sections to more supportive roles. How do you decide who is the focus and who needs the support, and what do these roles look like for you guys?
I think it has to come down with, I mean, it's the score that decides, I think. It's true that when we work on a piece at first, we're going to do a lot of slow practice to make sure that we understand how the piece works. So we try to connect our ears with the vertical aspect and the horizontal aspect of it. Of course, there's a bit of analysis as well that can help us to understand a little more what are because the idea basically of interpreting a piece is actually like a translator. You have something on a page, but you have to translate it to actual emotions and actual like physical aspect of the sound, what you want to do in order to make it sound clear to the audience and to us. So obviously you have to have some kind of plan where the principal voice is, flowing in between voices. Obviously, if you play, for example, a Haydn piece, you can be sure that maybe 90% of the time the main voice is going to be on the first violin, but it doesn't mean that the intricate voices or the bass is not important, but you try to voice everything. So it's kind of like a DJ work when you make sure that everything is there, but you put the focus maybe on the lead voice, and then you want the bass to come a little more, and then you want the intricate voice. So it's a game of making sure that the sound image, so to speak, is perfectly clear to us at first. So the basic exercise that we do is basically there's one coming out of the group and he's making the three others work, and so he listens to what happens, from the outside to make sure that it makes sense musically, and then we try to record ourselves also quite a lot to understand the music on as many levels as we can.
I wanted to ask, do you guys listen to recordings post concert and you're like, oh, that's how it came off in this hall, attributing things?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. When it's recorded, yeah, it's, how actors say sometimes, like, it's really hard to see ourselves on the screen, or it's a little bit the same with musicians in the sound. It's at first when you're not used to listening to you, it's a little, it can be a little upsetting, but now we're really used to it. So whenever we have a recording, actually, it's really nice to work on it, to listen to what you actually gave, to understand, oh, okay, so this is not exactly what I thought it would sound like. And then you can adjust. Yeah, yeah. We listen to a lot of what we do. Yeah.
And in that idea, actually, very first recording we made, so the Brahms quartets, was kind of a shock of how we have to make even more than we think. And I think it's true in a recording, but it's also true in a hall on stage. You have to carry things even more than you think. So where you sit doesn't indicate exactly how you have to play. So you have to imagine always how to speak for a microphone or how to speak to an audience. So it's something that takes time to realize, and yeah.
So for Sunday's concert, we are going to delight in some wonderful string quartet music by Mozart and Ravel, alongside the U.S. premiere of Last Flight by Ukrainian composer Anna Korsun. I was curious, what drew you to this particular Mozart quartet, K575?
So we wanted to play a late Mozart quartet because like actually the whole cycle of the Prussian quartets is really incredible, and it's also very well distributed in terms of voicing. For instance, the cello has a very big soloist role, which is not often the case because Mozart apparently hated the cello. And it was commissioned by a prince who was a cellist. So he had to, force himself. And that creates a really wonderful quartet. It's very bright, very positive, which is actually not that often in music, in classical music in general, and even Mozart to have a very sunny, positive piece. So it's really nice to play on stage.
And Mozart was such a master of the opera. Are there any aspects of kind of operatic writing that you feel come through in this quartet?
Yeah, it's maybe a bit less true in that one, especially. I mean, it's maybe a detail, but it starts with a sotto voce indication, which means that it's already a voice that is not carried maybe as much as an opera voice would. And sometimes in other Mozart quartet, we were trying to find a more lyrical sound and something that's like in the dissonance, and maybe in other ones where the melodic line is maybe a bit more operatic. In this one, I mean, it's very nice to play it in a very mixed way, and
there is a big, I mean, not a big, but there is a clear opera moment where in the first movement, the first violin is playing something very lyrical and like peaceful, and the viola has some cheeky, out of context element. I will make it obvious, but it's very much like
That's a good one.
operatic.
Et dans le final, ça?
Le ta da ga da.
Ouais, le final.
Yeah. Ah oui.
And we're very excited to hear your performance of Ravel's iconic string quartet, his only composition in this genre.
Yeah.
As a French string quartet performing this French music, are there particular sound qualities or techniques that you employ while performing this work?
It's funny because it's a question a lot of people ask to us is as a French ensemble, what are the French elements that you would use? And I think what we're trying to achieve in this Ravel is having a combination of a really personal sound. So trying to make it come out, especially in the solo parts, something that is something that you can identify as much as you can, but also a lot of transparency. I think it's a music that requires a lot of transparency because the harmonies are really rich. It's not complex music at all when you listen to it, but it's very rich. And if you want to make this clear to the audience and to the players as well, you have to find a combination of both. And in that aspect, it's funny because you can find parallel with Mozart music actually. You have the same sound quality of some type of elegance in the sound, but at the same time you need like the core to be super precise and clear. But also you want like sometimes a really warm sound. You want something that is really bring bright, like some kind of yeah, a warm quality to it. And obviously it's going to depend from passage to passage. But that's what I would say about the French sound, if there's one.
And so Anna's piece, Last Flight.
Well, yes.
How did this piece come to be? Could you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, it's been a long process because we contacted Anna, I would say, yeah, almost 2 years ago. And it was at first for a project that we had about outlaws composers. So the idea was to create a program that goes from like the archetypal figure of evil in classical music, which is Carlo Gesualdo, and then it went to Ethel Smythe, who was in prison because she threw rocks at the prime minister's office. So Shostakovich also, that was enemy of the people. In so this kind of more outcast figures. But the very first piece that we were going to play to this concert was from Carlo Gesualdo. And for those who don't know, Carlo Gesualdo was he was an Italian prince and composer from the 16th, 17th century, and he's a great composer. But there is also some very dark element in his biography, which is when he killed his first wife in a very brutal manner. So there has been a lot of writing, movies, books about him that has been made, but we wanted to have a view on Carlo Gesualdo that would be a bit different, maybe a bit more critical somehow. So we asked Anna Korsun to compose a piece connected to Carlo Gesualdo. And she did something that doesn't have any musical element of his music in the piece, but is more connected to maybe a picture, a landscape of what's the life in this castle, in this Gesualdo city, could have been in the 16th century. So it's a very impressionist atmospheric piece, and we based this piece on the testimony of the second wife of Carlo Gesualdo. So that's why he didn't kill, but he was still a pretty awful husband for her. And in the letters from Eleonora d'Este, she depicts a wide, big castle with a wind blowing, a very cold wind blowing. And she also mentions the mistresses of Carlo Gesualdo that were locked in the basement of the castle for sorcery. They were accused for being witches. So there's that. There is also this very weird music from Carlo Gesualdo, which was coming from the music room from in the castle. So this whole thing was kind of an imaginary to build this piece and to create a landscape, an atmosphere of 10 minutes that is supposed to bring you in that terrible environment. And Carlo Gesualdo music is very vocal, so there is also a vocal part that we actually do as we play. So we sing and play, which was a bit of a challenge as well. So yeah.
And that brings me to my next question. How do you feel that this piece kind of expands or challenges the tradition of the string quartet?
Actually, Anna Korsun is at first she's a performer, so she writes music that's for others, but she's also someone who goes on stage and improvises and sings and play the piano. So if you look at her playing, you can see already that not everything can be written on score, which was not an issue, but something we had to deal with because the score is very graphic, very it's suggested, and she trusts the musicians to make something out of what she has written, which is not a conventional way of writing. So we had to deal with that. We had to deal also with the fact that we are a string quartet and we need informations to uh, have gestures that are exactly the same, and I mean, it's an example, but at some point in the score, there are just lines that's going up and down, which makes, and when you hear her play or sing, you see that what she's doing is just very organic. But to make it the four of us as a quartet, you have to have more info. It's not a critic to Anna Korsun because she trusted us to do it our way, but we had to rewrite actually some parts to make them just to have like a structure of rhythm of notes that would make it more efficient. So there was that, and yeah, so it was a work that we did before starting to play the four of us, trying to think what could be the piece and what we should do at the first rehearsal to go in the same direction, the four of us.
What is there a moment that everyone, when first reading this piece, where you might not have agreed, and how do you as a quartet kind of overcome these challenges of your interpretations?
I think we try many things. I think we try many things. When we don't agree on something, usually we're gonna try both. For example, let's say there's both interpretations that would clash. Then we would try both, and then it's about what is the one that makes the more sense. It can also be on the moment. For example, right now we're on tour, and so we're also experimenting with things that happen and that we, for example, from a previous concert, the concert before, we're like, oh, this, I don't know, there was something a little weird in what we did in this connection. Could we try something else? So obviously we tried to come up on stage with like a very an interpretation that is we spent a lot of time with. But at the same time, there's also things that have to happen on the moment, and then you have to see if they work or not, with the whole, with the music, with the moment. And so you try, you experiment, and sometimes you do things, and like a couple of months later, you're like, I would, I wouldn't do this anymore. So your interpretation can also change. It can also evolve, and sometimes we don't agree, and we decide that for this concert is going to be like this, and it doesn't mean that everything is going to be set in stone forever. There's room to, you know.
And in the case of that piece, for example, it's written as a big glissando. Most of the piece is written that way. But somehow, if you do it like exactly to make clear to the audience that it's just glissandes, there might have some moments where it's to the border of being a bit ridiculous or a bit like cartoonish. So you have to find the right balance, and I think we had it wasn't a big fight about it, but we had to find a way to like stick to the structure and the main idea of the piece, and meanwhile be respectful to the atmosphere that should be created. And I think in that sense, we try to find a in the middle solution, which is not always what we do. Sometimes in the middle solutions are really the worst ones because it doesn't express anything. So usually we try not to fall into that trap of like trying to satisfy everyone with something a bit flat. But in that case, I think we had to kind of find a balance.
And what draws you, either individually or as an ensemble, to champion new works by living composers? Is this something you feel that you have a responsibility to do as an artist, or has it always been an interest of yours with new music?
Yeah, I think we like it. We like the process of working with living people, which is unusual actually for us. Like we are, it's, I think the approach we have to contemporary music is good in a way that we try to find the intention of who wrote it, and we try to sell it in a way the best we can. For instance, yeah, this piece we really had to think of what we wanted to convey to the audience. And of course, that's the same with the Beethoven quartets, except we have so much precaution sometimes, as we're so cautious and we respect so much that sometimes we don't make strong choices, or like, we don't want to disturb. And we respect modern composers, but of course, but I think knowing that they're alive and they can tell us if it's wrong, or like we, in a way, we are more free. So that's
Yeah, that's very true.
Okay.
Because actually, when you work with a composer, even sometimes, like we worked with a composer like maybe 2 months ago, and he was like, you know what, like this works, what you just did works better from what I just wrote. And so actually, I'm going to change that. It's a living process. You're working with someone that is hearing something also for the first time sometimes. And so obviously there's room, for both sides to understand a little more each other. So obviously we have to keep in mind when you're playing, like, for example, a Beethoven quartet, that it's important to imagine that the score is imperfect. Like it's not perfect. There is ideas, everything is on the page, but if you stick right to what's on the page, you can also miss sometimes what is the core of the music. And the core of your music is an idea, is an emotion, is something you try to convey. And he put it with notes, with dynamics, with everything, but it's more than that. And so that's what's amazing with the living composer is you have this exchange. You can talk about it. So it's sometimes interesting to just remind yourself that there was a time where people would have this experience with Beethoven, but
It was a collaboration between composers and players. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, with Beethoven, it's tricky. No.
And what do you all hope that the audience will take away from hearing this piece for the very first time?
Yeah, that their imagination would be stimulated, and yeah, that's
they will hear also very unusual sounds and effects. I think it's an 8-minute piece, and it really brings you somewhere else. I think it really brings you somewhere else. You have the chance to. I think if you let your mind, just float away, you might end up in the Gesualdo's castle. Hopefully.
Thank you so much for sharing. So, on Saturday, November 15th, the day before your concert performance, you will conduct a chamber music masterclass for students in the community. What is your view on the importance of gauging with students and community members outside of the concert hall?
I think it's amazing because I just when I see myself being like 14, 15 in Toulouse Conservatory, I remember so clearly those masterclasses and those moments with the people that I would admire, like amazing players that would come giving masterclasses, and I would be like just a young student, and it really brought to life this dream of being a professional musician. And that's really what I try to keep in mind when I'm giving, a coaching or a masterclass or whatever, is trying to, for 1 hour, to focus on a few things that will really, switch on some lights in the brain of a student to be like, okay, I can carry this for a long time, and this is important, and I could improve this or that, and really coming with a positive and an idea of I really want to help, and that's something I really, really adore.
yeah, many masterclasses stick with us as a quartet years after we had them. It was maybe just a teacher we had for an hour, and we still have a quote of his, and when we say it, we all understand what it's about. So, I mean, sometimes masterclasses can have this really, yeah, sparkle effect. So I hope it will be the case. Yeah.
I'm sure. And do you believe that outreach events have an impact on the wider community outside of just the students participating?
Well, I hope so. I do.
Yeah, that's something difficult to know how much how the audience is growing in a wider, because I mean classical music has been like a very yeah for many years a way for people, for a certain society to distinguish from another. And I think our role is really to abolish that, like totally, because we do think it can speak to everyone, and our role is also to make that tangible. The fact that yeah, it stimulates imagination also for people who wouldn't have the education. So yeah, it's important to us to feel that we are
Part of society,
yeah,
basically. Yeah, we for example, a good example, if we've been asked to play in jail a couple times, and it was obviously, at first very scary. You're like, what's gonna happen in a jail? You don't know, but at the end, it's just people listening to a concert, and you play music, and they go back to their lives, and they had a moment of music, and we shared something together, and that's all it is about. Playing it for elder people, playing for kids. And the matter is, having an audience and having this exchange of musicians and the audience, and yeah.
and also in that kind of context, it's also maybe can even of a selfish thing, but we have a feedback, a very direct feedback that we don't have in a concert hall. And I think of other kinds of music like jazz, where when you do something, you have like a reaction to what you do. Like stand-up comedy, I don't know, I'm listening to podcasts about stand-up comedians, and they say they trying jokes, and it doesn't work until they find the right way to do it, and then they have a response. But for us, it's just silence until they applaud. So to have like a contact with people where you can afterwards talk about what you just did is also a way to know, like, oh, this moment was really special, and to have a feedback on what we do besides the rehearsal. Yeah, so yeah.
Thank you. And what advice would you give to young musicians interested in playing chamber music?
Oh, that's I think that's the best idea. Like whatever level you're at individually, it will bring so much to just to get out of your own, instrumental world, like to listen to other people, see how they play, trying to imitate, trying to blend, trying to just like something we have to do constantly in quartet. Like someone has a motive, and then it, it passes to every instrument. That it has to be recognized and to be the same. So if someone does it very well, bad news, you had to do it very well. And then that's how you improve. And so I think it's very valuable at any age.
It's the best school.
Yeah.
It's the best school. Play as much chamber music as you can.
And at this time, we'd like to open up the floor for audience questions. We do have one here now. If you could meet any non-living composer, is there one you would love to ask? What did you mean to do here in the music?
I would have to go with Beethoven, I think, because there's a lot of like amazing and at the same time super bizarre stuff in some quartets. For example, when I think about obviously the Great Fugue, right? The last movement of the Opus 130, I would really like to ask him, what is this about exactly? What brought you, to write something like this? That would be probably it for me.
Yeah, but so about Beethoven, I would ask about the tempo, like the tempis that he writes, because it's very, very fast usually. And not many people try, and there are some historical arguments that, it's the metronomes were done differently, or like he would read it wrong. He would read above the sign instead of, So you can always think that it's okay to play slower. So I would ask about that.
Yeah, I agree with Beethoven is a good one. Yeah, I would like to chat with Haydn. He seemed to be very fun. So,
Yeah, that's true.
True.
And could you tell us a little bit about your particular instrument? Is it your only one? Do you travel with it?
Yes, yes, we do travel with our instruments. As a cellist, we even need to purchase an extra seat for the cello on the plane. We play, so two of us play modern instruments. Raphael is playing on a Friedrich Albert, a viola. He's a German maker, but he lives in the south of France. And I play on a Patrick Robin cello, who's an amazing maker. And sadly, he passed away actually a few months ago. He was a really fantastic maker. Thomas is lucky to play on violin lent to us by actually a private sponsor from New York. And it's loaned to us from the Beers International Violin Society in London. And he plays on a Cheruti instrument from the beginning of the 19th century. And
it's my violin is not mine. It's attributed to Joseph Guarneri, but it's 18th century, beginning of 18th century Cremona, probably Gisalberti. Yeah, so, and it's by a German doctor, and I have it since pretty much the beginning of the quartets. This man just gave it as a gift to the quartet. So yeah,
it's great.
And the boat actually, I had to take another boat to come to the US because there are many very strict restrictions at the moment. I don't know if you had to change, but mine, I don't use my regular bow on that tour because it has elephant ivory, which is forbidden, and so yeah.
Okay. And what do you feel classical music offers listeners that other genres of music doesn't? Is there anything in particular?
Tempo changes.
Tempo changes.
In the sense that we are really not the type of people that want to put classical music above any other genres. The only difference with a lot of different genres is the tempo changes. In classical music, the tempo can fluctuate. And so a cool thing that I like to think as a classical music player is you're kind of a wizard. You're kind of a magician with time. You're playing with time. And so you're also playing with the time perception on people. And that's a cool thing because you can speed up, you can slow down, and you can make things appear a little slower than they are. And it's really magical effect on people. I mean, that's what I like about it. It's the fluctuation in the tempo that I find fascinating in a way in classical music.
And also, it's not just about classical music, but the fact that we play acoustic instruments is also something that's maybe also, I don't know, nowadays with the fact that many of the interaction we have are through a screen or electronics, and we don't trust anything anymore. To have like four people playing on wooden instruments with a direct contact to the string and to see what a finger and a bow on a string would come to your ear directly without the intermission of anything. I think it's making the audience maybe hopefully a bit more peaceful about, I don't know, listening to, yeah.
And, so in addition to classical music, are there any other art forms that inspire you, like dance or painting or things that you think about in relation to playing classical music?
I mean, while rehearsing, we think a lot about images from movies, for instance. But that can also be from like daily life, like anything that allows us to have to think about the same thing at some precise passage. We had some experiences playing with dancers, which is when we can see them while playing, it's very interesting because then it's really you get something, you give something, and it's really alive. And that's really fun to do as well.
We have another audience question here. Do you have any pre-concert rituals you do that help you perform your best?
We tune.
Which one? Which is it seems like nothing, but it's actually
No, yeah. It's actually, I think it's one of our, we have our own little rituals, I would say, but as a quartet we would tune. But like when I mean we tune, like we tune every string in order to be like perfectly in sync. And then we just like, do a little high five before going on stage. It's just a little thing we do. It doesn't mean anything. It's just part of our, how, athletes would have their little thing before going on court or whatever. It's our little thing. It's not much, but that's what we do. And then on a personal level, some of the players would do like breathing exercises, or they would play on their phones, or they would. It depends. Like with it, some like to play a lot, some don't like to touch the instrument that much. Then it's really on a personal level. It's also like connected to the moment. Sometimes you feel maybe a little more nerves, so you need to reassure yourself by playing more. Then it's.
Thank you so much. So our last question of the evening, what do you think of the role of an artist is in today's world? Is this something you think about for yourselves, such as what is my role in the world, or what is my goal as an artist or artist citizen?
That's that's question bigger than us.
Yeah.
But
I mean, as classical musicians, we have this thing that's not very any political or anything, but it's just to pass some cultural, very important cultural material that has been written 300 years ago, and I think it's nice to think that the human is pretty awful on lots of aspects, but to know that music that has been written 300, 400 years ago still can be a delight for the next generation, that we are also able to create things that can pass through generations without destroying the world, is something nice. I mean, yeah, but that's...
yeah, no, I think we really believe in that we have a very precious repertoire that can connect, that can speak to anyone and connect people just by listening and feeling the same emotions at the same time in the same place.
Exactly.
And that's just an experience that has value in itself. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me this evening, and thank you all of us for tuning in tonight. We look forward to seeing Quatuor Agate in concert this Sunday at 3 p.m. at the University of Albany's Performing Arts Center. Take care. Thank you all again.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
We are so much looking forward.
Guys, all right. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.